the logic of the divine, which is something the Bible even says, your thoughts are not my thoughts, neither my ways, your ways. That the divine's on a different level. So if we don't understand, it's like, well, yeah, that's partly because it's a divine document.
But I think we can. So what we want to try to do now is understand.
Okay.
So Emanuel Swedenborg comes on the scene, and I think if you want to say that the emblem that you would embroider on his body of theology is you can understand these things.
You can, yes. There is a rational explanation for why the text is the way that it is.
Yes, there is a logic to it, and the logic is essentially correspondences.
Mm-hmm.
So why doesn't the Old Testament prescribe the kind of world that you would want to have? Is because that's not what it was there to do.
Right. And it's absolutely true that the stories are laid out in a way, and Swedenborg talks a lot about the fact that it's accommodated to people of all different times and different levels of education or life experience or whatever. A lot of it, you think of Jesus' teaching in the New Testament, it's about grapes and sheep and things that, people have experience with and will understand.
Yeah.
But the element that Correspondences brings in is that it's couched in those terms, but what it's really saying is not that. This is not really about one person owning another person. That's sort of at the heart of Swedenborg's explanation. Slavery does not mean slavery.
If I had to describe the big story of what the Bible is, and the Old Testament in particular, it's like a seed. So you had, back at a certain time in history, there was a group of people who were living somewhere, and God said these things to them. And it was this strange little shell of a seed. It was just a little bit of the human race was following these things, and they were strange and rough. But the point of the Old Testament is to be a seed for a little while. These people were carrying it around and doing it, but within it, just like there is within a seed, is this huge tree that wants to grow out. That's the internal sense. That's the actual meaning, the heavenly meaning captured within these symbols. And
part of the nature of the heavenly meaning is that it applies to all people at all times. There's an essentially one-size-fits-all nature to the inner meaning because it transcends time and space and so on. So it's not about, you can enslave that person, but not that person, which sounds so offensive now. It's like, we're the good people now. We used to be slaves ourselves, but now we're the good people and we'll enslave these other people.
Whenever I try to explain what we're doing right now, Correspondences, in my mind, or when I'm reading Swedenborg, I think this is so good. This is just self-evident. But as soon as we start to talk about it, I'm thinking about the people at home and that they're saying, what are these guys talking about? So let me try to, I'm going to address this camera and try to give the 6-year-old version of this.
Great.
Tell me if this is right.
Okay.
The Old Testament is like a seed. A seed is something that inside there's the genetic material that's going to lead to this amazing tree. But there's also a casing around it that doesn't have any DNA. It's not even really alive, but you have to have that in order for it to survive the journey and sprout and grow. So
yes, even across hundreds of years, it's an interesting analogy because they have seeds from thousands of years ago.
In Norway,
and some of them will still work. You plant them and they'll grow.
Yeah,
they were able to hold on for that long.
In the Doomsday Vault in the Norwegian mountains somewhere.
Yes, right.
Let's go get some of those.
Heirloom species.
It's probably delicious.
Yeah.
So you have this seed, and the seed is Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Genesis, those books, those stories, Moses, Noah, all that. That's the shell. And inside of it is love your neighbor as yourself and everything that's good.
Spiritual DNA.
And
something living, something that can produce life in us, something that can reform the human race, even though you wouldn't think a statement about slavery would have any salutary effect on the human race.
And the reason,
especially one that says, go ahead,
I know. If I was telling this to a 6-year-old, they would already be playing with something else. I feel like I'm losing them.
Okay.
But so listen, you little kid. So Noah and all that stuff and this and Exodus and all that, that's the case. And it holds within it this stuff that's really good and really beautiful and really divine and everything you would think would be what God would tell the human race. And the way that it holds it in there is that everything stands for something. So even slavery stands for something that's different than what it is. All the stories and boats and food and everything you meant, that all stands for something spiritual. And so you can have people possessing this outer meaning that holds within it the inner. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah,
the kid
that's
left.
good.
He left.
That's good.
He's crying.
Well, then I can talk to some of the older folks and just say part of the idea of this is not that the symbolism, it's symbolic. Correspondences are basically a system of symbolism, but it's a system. So it's not just arbitrary that one thing just happens to mean this, but you'd have to just know that because you read Swedenborg or something. No, it's a pretty consistent language across all the different authors of the Old and New Testaments, which were written by people across hundreds, even thousands of years, and yet the idea is that the moon has a certain meaning all across there, and mountains have a certain meaning, all figs and so on. And so it's a system. It's not just arbitrary symbolism, like saying, well, let's say that this salt shaker means Europe and this, pepper shaker
because
is
Europe
United
is
States.
Pretty salty.
Yeah,
overall,
that's right.
about a lot of stuff.
And America's more peppery.
So we're just peppery people. It's double not arbitrary. It's not arbitrary in that way, and that there is a consistent meaning that applies across it. But it's also not arbitrary in that the symbolism is literally a part of the physics of the reality. I mean, like the physics that cross between the physical and the spiritual world. Because, for example, light in the Bible is a correspondence for the truth. That there's all different ways in which whenever there's light mentioned in the Bible, it corresponds to truth. Well, that correspondence extends to just regular life. What the light in this room is doing for us right now, allowing us to understand what's going on here and affecting how everybody at home sees us or, understands us. That is literally the role that truth plays in the world of the spirit. So it's not just these things can stand in for each other, but they do the same role in their respect. It's written into everything. You couldn't just switch the Bible around and say, well, let's rewrite it and have a mountain stand for something else. And it's got to be the symbolism that it is so real that it used to be you could just look out at nature and learn the same things, because there as well you have mountains and you have the moon and you have all these things.
True.
It's a part of how everything really actually works.
And you're reminding me of something that a thought that came to me when I was doing a Bible study a few years ago, that what the Bible says is literally true of the spiritual world.
6-year-old.
In other words, that when in one Bible study we looked at what clouds are doing. Clouds behave very much not like physical clouds in the sky here in the Bible, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
But what they're doing, because of what they mean, you can see that it's non-literal. If you look at it, a pillar of cloud led the Israelites around. When has there ever been such a thing? There's no such thing.
Coming in the clouds
reality.
of heaven. It's just like if you go through a cloud in an airplane and it's just foggy for a while, then you pop out.
Right. And there's no way that someone who was coming in the clouds would be seen by people all over the planet at the same time, even though that's what the prophecy says. But there are some parts of the world that aren't cloudy, and some parts of the world are dark. We're
going to have to set up some mirrors so that everyone can see.
Everyone can see it. Yeah. It's literally true of the spiritual world, which I think is an interesting way to think about it.
So you have this book, including this part in Leviticus, which we're going to get deeply into in a little bit. It is a seed that is holding this spiritual meaning and doing so through correspondences or symbolism. If you step back and look at what is God trying to do with the Bible, what is this thing actually? Because Ben Shapiro in that clip said, he was speaking to a specific people at a specific time. Why was he doing that? Why was he talking to those people? Why those people in particular? Why was he trying to give, what instructions was he trying to give them? That was to create the seed. But if you look at what the tree is that he knew in providence, now it's everybody's got access to it. Now it's affecting the whole world. It's got the New Testament and Jesus Christ in there. And so now everybody, if you look at that, here's what Swedenborg says the whole Bible actually is. It appears on its surface to be a chronology of a certain people at a certain time in the world with perplexing details
and the
everywhere.
odd things that happen.
This is what it's actually about. You ready? This is from Secrets of Heaven 5.3.5.4. The process of regeneration, which contains much that cannot be described, constitutes the bulk of angelic wisdom and is such that no angel working to eternity can fully exhaust the subject. What's regeneration?
That's pretty deep. So regeneration is, in other words, what people sometimes mean by being reborn or rebirth. It's the idea that you can actually become, in a sense, a different person, or you can be born anew, the way it puts it in the New Testament. It's a method of change to where you don't, you love better things than you used to, you have better thoughts than you used to, your mind and your heart are changed. And it's a gradual process that takes a lot of time. But that's what the book is really all about, which is something that concerns all human beings, at least the ones that want to change. It's a recipe for how to change.
So, as you just alluded to, the quote goes on to say, so it says there's this amazing amount of stuff in regeneration. It's this mystical process of turning into a good person. That is why it is the main subject of the word's inner meaning.
That's the main topic.
So the Bible is a seed. The outer shell is all these stories and it's Leviticus and all that. But inside, there is this spirit to it. And the main subject is, here's how you leave the hell of ego and materialism and dominion and everything you're trying to do bad to your neighbors and come into the heaven of regeneration and goodness and truth.
And being a loving, wise person.
That is what you'd think God is trying to do.
And interestingly, your analogy of a seed is actually in the Bible. It's in the New Testament. It's in the Old Testament.
No, I made that up.
In the New Testament, it says a sower went forth to sow, and he sowed seed. And then when Jesus explains this to the disciples, he says, that's the word. That's what gets sown, and these are these different reactions that it has. So that's right in there. And I'm also thinking of Isaiah 55, beautiful passage that I can't quote from memory, where it says that my word, God says, my word goes forth. It's like, rain and snow that falls down. And the phrase that's come to mind is that to give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. It says that's what it won't return to me void. It'll accomplish what I set it out to do. So it's almost, your analogy of DNA is good, because it's almost like, in our modern computer way of thinking of things, you'd say it's software or something that there's something being installed that's going to do something. The words on the page are only that first little rain, but it's there to give a seed to the sower and bread to the eater.
I love that. I would say just for procedure, if you ever don't know a quote directly, you can just say you do and just say something to me, and I'm not going to know. I'm just going to, wow.
That is makes you a pleasure to be
with. Here's Isaiah 50. Oh, really? That's what it is? But also, we just proved our point. You said, I didn't even think of those passages when I thought of the idea of the word is like a seed. And also, when you said those, it called to mind for me, kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which is real little.
That's right.
And then it grows into a big tree.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
That is what we're talking about. The correspondences literally are what they symbolize. So the word literally is a seed in that this text does inside you what seeds do in the ground in this world. It's not just Jesus is looking around the room and like what should I tell these people the kingdom of heaven is like? It's a little bit like a book. It's a little bit like a cup. A seed. It's probably that is it's the it's the instance, physical instance of the analog to the spiritual thing, which is called the Word.